morning, fourth graders. So for today, we are doing one of the review pages for Unit 8. And remember that just like in class when we do a front and back page each day, we're going to do the same thing from home. So number 1 says draw and label line segment FG. So I have a line drawn here, but I want you to think for a minute. How are we going to tell the difference between a line and a line segment? Because that's really important to know for this unit. Okay, so if you thought that each side would have an end point, you would be right. Because remember, a segment is just that. It's just a piece of a line. And I have to label it correctly too. So they already told me the letters I'm supposed to use, F and G. So here I have point F and point G, and then the line is in between them. So I've got the line segment FG. Number 2, use a protractor. I went to Safeway and got a protractor. So I'm going to measure this angle. So this protractor is a little different than the one that I'm used to using, and we'll notice that about protractors is that they come in sometimes different styles and different shapes, but that's okay. We can work with that. So notice that this line here says 0. I have to make sure that that is going to line up with my line there. So visibly it might be easier for you to see on this protractor than the one we were using at the beginning of the unit. Okay, so I see that that's at 0. Now if I follow up to where this arrow is pointing, again, I can see I have 2 choices. And here is where that word reasonable comes back in that we always talk about in math. Which answer is reasonable, or why is our answer reasonable? You have 2 choices here, either 40 degrees or 140 degrees. So as you think about that, think about the things you know about angles. Do you know what a 90-degree angle looks like? Is this angle smaller or larger than a 90-degree angle? Okay, it's smaller, so 40 would make a lot more sense than 140. So I don't have to get confused that there's 2 numbers there. I just have to remember the things I already know about angles and choose the one that is the most reasonable. We use that word a lot in math. That'll come up quite a bit. So this angle measures 40, and then remember that that little circle there, that is how we show our unit. Our unit is degrees here. So when you label, remember we always say label your work. That's how you label it, with just a tiny little circle like that. Number 3, choose the figure that has at least one pair of parallel lines. Again, we see our trick word here, mark all that apply. So I'm going to circle that nice and dark for myself so that I remember to look back at that. Okay, let's check it out. At least one pair. So if it just has one pair, I get to choose it. What do you think about A? Yep, A has not just one pair, but 2 pairs of parallel lines. Remember, parallel lines are lines that can go on and on beside each other without ever intersecting. They never touch. Okay, B, same thing, 2 pairs of parallel lines. How about C? Nope, C does not have any pairs of parallel lines because it is a triangle. Triangles do not have parallel lines because they all have to come together and intersect. They would never go on and on without touching. Looking at D, do I see any parallel lines? Well, definitely here and here. I'll let you be the judge at home, but I think this shape has 3 sets of parallel lines. So I'm going to give D a shade in as well. Okay, number 4, use the figures here and then answer the questions. So here we have a lot of line statements. For A, line ZZ and line WY are parallel. Oops, I said Z, I meant ZX. Okay, ZX and WY. Are those parallel? No, what makes that false? They're not parallel, they are perpendicular. Good. Line SU, line RT. Oh yeah, those are parallel. They'll keep going and going without touching. Line ZX, line WY. Oh, that's the exact same thing. Look at that. Oops. Aha, it's not the same. Are they perpendicular? Yes, they are perpendicular. And then for D, a line drawn through points R and U is perpendicular to RT. So I can use my protractor, remember, for a straight edge. So I could draw a line between R and U here, and then I can check. is that line that I just drew, is it perpendicular to RT? No, it is intersecting. And sometimes fourth grade students get confused. Intersecting does not mean perpendicular. Intersecting just means that the two lines touch, they come together, but it doesn't have to be at a right angle. Perpendicular means the lines intersect at a right angle. Okay, number 5, the map below shows a section of Fatima's town. Fatima is walking on Oak Drive and Gabe is walking on Miller Avenue. Could Fatima and Gabe ever meet? If so, where? Okay, so she's walking on Oak Drive. So I'm going to just shade that. If I had my markers handy, I could use a marker. And Gabe is walking on Miller Avenue. I'm going to shade that one too. What do you think? Could they ever meet if they stay on the same streets? If you say no, that would be correct. And remember, we always have to say because, no, because the streets are, okay, think about it. What word should I write there? You should know this by now. The streets are parallel. So again, just reviewing these words, we know they're going to pop up on our test on Thursday. Parallel, perpendicular, really making sure we have those strong in our heads. Which street is perpendicular to Broad Street? So finding Broad Street here. Which street is perpendicular to Broad Street? Now I have to look for that right angle. Luckily for us in this map, they gave us the right angle. So I see that it's this street here. Sometimes on maps, it's hard to know the names of the streets. This street is Pine Street, but you can see what I mean. It's kind of off to the side there, so sometimes you just have to look for a second. And okay, no, I know this one's Maple Way, this is Miller Avenue, so this has to be the name for Pine Street. Okay, so Pine Street is the name of the street that is perpendicular, and then we would need to explain why. And you could say because they meet at a right angle. I want to make sure that we keep moving, but that's how you would explain that one. Number 6, choose the word that makes a true statement. Here's angle BCD. Angle BCD is, it's either a right angle, an acute angle, or an obtuse angle. Review from before spring break. What do you think? Aha, if you said an obtuse, you would be correct. What makes an obtuse angle? It is greater than 90 degrees. Very good. It is greater than a right angle. It's bigger than that angle. Number 7, the last one for today. Draw all the lines of symmetry for the figure. Remember, symmetry means that you could fold it in half and both sides would be exactly the same. They would fold over on top of each other. So I can draw a line of symmetry here, definitely. Now, if you're like me and your brain sometimes has a hard time with this, it is handy. I know on Clever and math expressions when you're online, you can't really do this, but you can pretend you're doing it. You can picture yourself turning the page, because when you do turn the page, it really helps you see all the different sides of the shape. So notice that as I'm literally turning this triangle around, I see the same thing again and again, and I notice that not only does it have one line of symmetry, it actually has 3 lines of symmetry. Not all triangles do, but this one is an equilateral triangle, so it has 3 lines of symmetry. All right, so for today's lesson, we're going to be retaking quiz number 3 because we need to review that, and some of you will be meeting with me in Math Centers today. All right, have fun.